Hey, what's up guys? How you doing? It's me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. What you're seeing right now, it's Alien Covenant 4K UHD movie that's being played out on TCL Roku TV 55P605 model. And what I'm going to try to do here is walk you through some stills, scenes. I cannot play the movie obviously because 20th Century Fox reserves the rights of the movie, but however I can show you some stills from the movie and walk you through the calibration. So that's what we're going to do. I purposely decided to do this in a dark room so that way you guys can see all the detail of calibration. Okay, so let's do this. Let's continue. As you can see, this is HDR10, 24 Hertz. I'm pretty sure many of you know that all of these movies are shot in 24p, 24 Hertz, and this is the reason why I don't like to use that motion flow of 120 to 240 Hertz, because the movies aren't meant to be watched with that soap opera effect. Okay, they were filmed specifically with that 24 Hertz to have that cinema feel. Okay, now let's continue with this calibration. Of course, if you have seen the movie, you do know who this character is. This is David. That's an android created by Peter Whalen, and this particular prologue of this movie, in this scene, it's the conversation between his creator, Peter Whalen, and of course the android himself, David. I'm not going to talk about too much about the movie or synopsis and all of that. If you have seen the movie, you know. If you haven't, I'm not going to spoil it. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's do the calibration for Alien Covenant 4K UHD Blu-ray. I already have done a calibration on this movie for Samsung KS8000 and looks pretty good, but right now we're doing it for TCL 55P605 model. I decided to pretty much leave it on the brighter. Yes, there's different types you can use. You can use bright, you can use normal, you can use dark, depending on the environment you're in. But I would keep it on a brighter because this TV, only has 700 peak brightness, and it's not a very bright TV, but it's definitely a good peak brightness. It's not like the greatest, but it's definitely good. It's about pretty much the same as the OLED. OLED's about 700, I think. This one's 700 nits. So I like to keep it on brighter. Picture mode, I use dark HDR, and the main reason I like to use dark HDR because it has much better tone of color. If I keep it on normal, it just looks too bluish, and I don't like that. I don't like that bluish color. Dark gives me that nice tone of color. It's not too yellow, it's not too blue, it's just right. Normal is just too blue and has that blue UV light that I hate. So this is more natural to me instead of this. It looks too cold. This is much warmer, so I like to keep it on a dark HDR. Picture size, I choose direct for a couple of reasons, because if you go normal, you see it zooms in. When you keep direct, it gives you a total ratio. Okay, for example, look at my finger here, and look at that chair. Look at that chair, and you'll see how much you're going to lose when you go on a normal. And then look how much you get when you go on direct. Direct is the direct source, so you get the full ratio of the movie the way it was filmed, and that's what you want. You want to experience the movie in its full format. Okay? So I like to keep it on direct. Now let's go to the advanced picture settings. Local contrast, meaning local dimming zones, I always leave this on high. You have to leave it on high because you do want to get those deep dark levels. 72 local dimming zones, you want to make sure you always keep this on high. So there's 4 things that you always will have to have on like this for HDR content. Number 1, I would always leave the local dimming zones at high. I would never mess with this. I would always keep this at high. And of course, if you're watching an HDR movie, you always want to make sure that you keep your backlit at 100, your contrast at 100, and brightness at 50. You do not want to mess with the brightness because you already have those deep dark levels with 72 local dimming zones, so you do not want to move the brightness below 50 or above 50. You want to keep it at 50 like this. If you do go down below 50, you will crush your deep dark levels. So you want to keep it like this. Sharpness here, it's 10, but I think for this movie, we could go to the 20. But let's try something else. Let's try maybe 7 or 8. Let's keep it on 8. Let's see what I can do if I keep it on 8. And then I'm going to switch to another scene. Color is 45. But honestly, you could keep the color at 50. Color at 50 should be okay. I would say for this movie, I would keep the color at 55. I think... Hold on. Let me see. Let's go. Let me switch to another scene, and then I'm gonna see if I should leave the sharpness at 10 or should I leave it at 8. So I'm gonna switch to another scene. Alright, here's another scene. This is Peter Wayland, played by Australian actor Guy Pearce. And he's an excellent actor. He was in LA Confidential, opposite Russell Crowe. He was in a bunch of movies, you know. You all know who he is. So I think 8, sharpness 8, it's okay. I would presume, yeah. Let me see. Sharpness 12. I think I can. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for the outline. I don't like to have any outlines. I think the 10 is fine. Honestly, for sharpness, to me, 10 seems to me like the most desirable balance. You know, it's not too high, it's not too low, and it's just like right between the threshold. You see that little line that's right next to that purple? That means that 20 is the standard default, and I'm like on the balance of the standard threshold. And believe me, you do not want the sharpness all the way up. Then you're totally gonna have everything outlined. It's gonna look crappy. So I would say sharpness at 10, color at 55. It's fine, you know. For this movie. Now for that other video game, I felt 45 was good because of the you see, every content is different. But even though this movie has a different tone of color, I'm still, you know, trying to go by professional calibration rules. See, I have not oversaturated nothing here. What you're seeing here, it's exactly natural the way it should be. Now let's move on. Here's another great scene right here in the distance. And I like what I'm seeing here. Basically, everything looks balanced. The you can even see the reflection of that chair. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm seeing, but you can see the reflection of the chair on the mirror right over here. And you see the sharpness. It's perfect at 10 here because it doesn't have too much of an outline. And it just looks good. Looks good to me, honestly. I would say sharpness at 10 and color at 55 here. Nothing gets oversaturated here. It looks really good. And of course, this camera, it's not doing it justice. If you see that flickering, that's because of those local dimming zones. All right. That's not how it looks in real life. When I'm looking at it, like right now in person, it looks much cleaner, it looks much more detailed. Okay, so ignore the flickering. If you see the flickering, that's because of the local dimming zones. All right, now let's move on. Let's move on to the ship, and inside the ship, let's do some other scenes. Here's another great scene right here when they land on this planet, and you see having that sharpness at 10 definitely helps, and also having that color at 55 adds a little more of HDR vibrance. Like I said, I only put 55. I didn't go above the threshold, you know, so I'm keeping it within the balance. So I left the color at 55 here, and you can see the reason why you want to keep the brightness at 50 and not move it around and just leave it at 50, because you already have those deep dark levels, local dimming zones, and now you got your brightness at 50, which is in the middle standard. Now you get to see the detail of the clouds. You see the different variations of the clouds and the color. You are able to see that because you have everything balanced here. Okay. And also the temperature of a color, it's better to be on a warm. This is why I always choose warm. All right, which is right over here. A lot of people ask me, well, why warm? But here's the reason why. Look what happens if I leave it on cool. It just looks too cold. It just doesn't look that good. It has that blue UV light. And then normal, it looks still a little bit bluish, and I don't like that. Warm, it just gives it that nice film tone of color, and that's why I like using the warm color. All right. Now in terms of hold on, right here, a couple of things as I wanted to tell you, like, as I mentioned earlier. Remember, local contrast, local dimming zones will always have to be at high, people. All right, on this television, you want to make sure you have the local contrast, local dimming zones at high. That's the whole point of this TV. That's the whole caviar of this TV. And the main reason I got this TV is because of the LED local full array of local dimming zones. Okay, and it definitely helps the deep dark levels here, and you want to keep them on high. Same thing here, since this is an HDR film, you want to make sure you have your backlit at 100 and your contrast at 100 and brightness at 50. You don't want to mess with the brightness. Sharpness, honestly, 10. It's perfect for this movie because you don't want to have too much of the outline on the sharpness. Color, I felt 55 was just the right amount of color. It's not oversaturated, it's just the right amount. And of course, color temperature at warm. Alright, let's go to another scene really quick. Here's another great scene right here in the movie, in the medic bay, where this infected person, obviously infected by a pathogen, black goo. They call it pathogen, the virus. And you can see the alien popping out of his spinal cord, and it just looks excellent. See, this is what you want in the movie. You don't want colors to be oversaturated. You don't want deep dark levels to be crushed. You want that natural tone of color, and you want that natural outline of sharpness, detail. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to give you guys the best possible experience on this TV. Now, this is not like state-of-the-art TV. Obviously, this looks better on Samsung KS8000. And I will do that comparison. You know, one of these days, I will compare these two TVs. But for a budget, you know, this TV, this is definitely an excellent viewing HDR 4K Blu-ray quality. Okay, let's continue with this, show you a little bit more. Alright, so this probably, it's going to be gross. Obviously, this is prosthetic. It's not real, but it looks real. And you see how it looks natural. And the reason it looks so natural because of proper calibration. When you properly calibrate something, it's gonna look good. Even on this budget 4K HDR TV, you're gonna have that good experience. Okay? And even here you can see it. You know, the color is just natural, looks natural. It's not too oversaturated. And the detail speaks for itself. This is how the movie was intended for you to watch it, you know, so you can see it in its true form and its true detail. You're not supposed to oversaturate your colors. If you oversaturate your colors, if you crush your deep dark levels, then you are not experiencing this movie the way film director intended it for you to experience it. And I'm not saying this as like I'm some kind of a professional. I have read a bunch of books about calibrations. I have studied this in my free time. I had learned from other people, so you always want to stay within the rules of calibration, which is stay within the balance of calibration, meaning don't oversaturate your colors, don't crush your deep dark levels, don't crush your white balance, okay? All of these elements, don't over sharpen your outlines of the picture. Keep that sharpness within the rules of calibration. And here's another great example of that right here. You see how natural that explosion looks. You can even see in the background, you can see the detail of the clouds, the particles. Everything looks natural. Nothing gets oversaturated. Nothing gets crushed here. And this is what you're supposed to do. You know, this is how I calibrate. I stay within the rules. I still use my own two eyes, but I stay within the rules of calibration. Here's another great example right here. Even though this is very bright, still it's not oversaturated. Still it's perfectly calibrated. The color, it's just the right amount. Sharpness is just the right amount. And of course, the brightness is at 50 because we already have those 72 local dimming zones, which makes those deep dark levels darker, and then brightness at 50 to keep them balanced, so that way they're not crushed. And even here you can see the detail of the smoke, particles, everything. It's natural Nothing gets oversaturated here. And that's what you want when you're watching this kind of a movie with HDR. You really want to have that. In this movie, HDR pops in certain scenes, you know, depending on, like this scene, for example, will pop with HDR. And this is why you don't want to oversaturate that color. If you oversaturate that color, then this thing will look so ridiculous, okay? You won't be able to see none of the detail on this explosion, okay? Here's another great example right here. You see the detail of the color of the explosion and everything. It just looks more natural. And that trail of smoke right here. So, well, there you have it. So, I'm going to show you one more time before I end the video. These are the settings that I'm using. Obviously, TV brightness, it's brighter. Dark, I keep it on HDR. Obviously, picture size direct. And make sure you write this stuff down. Dark HDR. Local dimming zones, contrast high. Backlit 100. Brightness 50, contrast 100, sharpness 10, color 55, and color temperature warm. So make sure you guys write this stuff down. Hopefully you paused the video and wrote all of this stuff down. Alright, so there you have it, guys. That's my calibration for Alien Covenant on TCL 55P605 model. Thank you for watching. It's me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. I'm out.